I will introduce the topic unless you have anything else you want to say. Good.
I'm good.
So this was you had a good idea. So
Yeah.
told me about it this morning, and it was a good idea. Want to talk about? You said to me some of your favorite coaches, and maybe why. And my addition to the topic would be also talking about the bad coaches and what about them um, we didn't really like necessarily. So I have my own thoughts on kind of where I want to take it, but I kind of want to see what your thoughts are on the topic first, because I think it's really important that one, it's good to understand, like when people talk about the teachers that they've had before. It's like you have maybe of the 20 teachers you have in your life going through school, you might have 1 to 3 where you're like, that was a good teacher. And I think that's very similar for coaching. So, it's not often that you get a coach that you really connect with and that does a great job. And I think just being able to pick out things that are good and bad, it can help you positively either way, whether you're picking out the negatives and the things that you don't want, or it can help you deal with tough situations with your coach and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of when you mentioned the topic today, that's kind of where my brain went with it. So I have a couple coaches in mind already on both sides, but
Yeah.
I want you to start it off with what you were thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, before I talk about my favorite coaches that I've actually played for
Mhm.
or coached with or whatever, I wanted to just maybe paint a picture. Like if you watch the NHL, everyone's in love with. There's a couple coaches for sure, but one coach that always, from a player standpoint, other coaches, broadcasters, and everything that stands out, in my opinion, head and shoulders above everybody is Rod Brind'Amour. Would you agree with that? Like, if you, I don't know if you pay attention to that as much.
I've heard that. I don't know
Okay.
enough to have an opinion though that is
Okay.
well informed, but have heard that. He would have been one that I would have mentioned if you asked me.
Yeah.
So
So the question is why? Why is he so? I guess the word beloved as a player's coach, but gets beloved, yeah. But why is he so loved by his players and respected by everybody? Well, number one, it doesn't, because he was such a good hardworking player. That does not make him necessarily a great coach. But when he's demanding things from his players, he has that reputation of, well, number one, they always call him Rod the Bod for a reason, right? Do you know the story with him?
no.
So Rod Brind'Amour, when he went to Michigan State, that's where he went and didn't play junior. He went from the young, went to Michigan State. Actually, a couple of friends of mine played with him, and they legitimately had to lock the gym out, take a key from him and lock him out, because he
Really?
would go there like all the time, get pull-ups in and
Wow.
work out, and he was just shredded. And they were like, you're doing too much, but that was his mindset, right?
Yeah.
So his work ethic was off the charts. He was a first round pick in the NHL to St. Louis, and then he, obviously played. I think he played at 18 or 19 years old, and had a great career. Won a Stanley Cup, maybe two, but I know he won one with Carolina. And he was a workhorse, and he was a player that did everything, and he was intelligent and did everything. So then he got into coaching the Carolina Hurricanes, and he didn't change anything about himself. And I heard him do an interview recently, and he was saying, like, when I'm talking to the guys, and he's so cool about it. Like when he talks like as if he's a player. Hey guys, like it's not like that stern bullshit,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
He talks to them honestly, but he talks to them like he's one of the guys. And he goes, when I'm talking to them, I'm putting myself in that chair, so that, do I want to listen to this guy? Do I want to? Are they going to buy this message? And he goes, if I just put myself in that chair where I was not too long ago, then I feel like the relationship or the teaching is what I would want.
Right.
And so I was pointing that out because a lot of the times in coaching, and I guess this podcast was for coaches, really, more or less. I guess the bottom line is that when you're coaching, it's like people have an idea. I know a lot of times when people coach in youth hockey, they're all of a sudden they become a boss, and they're the boss of people, and they become a different person almost. And a lot of times they're not prepared for it, or they just have a different idea of what it should be, and they're control freaks sometimes, or sometimes it's just chaos. So I just looked at Rod Brind'Amour as my first example of a really good coach that everybody likes and gets it. So there's another question, right? Are you not supposed to like your coach? Because that was old school thinking, right? You probably remember that. In my days, coaches were like, I'm the coach, you're the player. I talk, you shut up. I
Right.
say jump, you say how high.
Yeah.
And it didn't have any reasoning for it. So I think and I think the modern day coach, it's very, very important because players have changed, that you do have a communication, and rightly so, by the way, right? And there is a point where it's like, no, because I said so, but rightly so, there should be a communication. And the better that communication is, and the more that you can relate to the player, I think you're going to get better results, to me. So I used him as an example, and I think it's a great way to start off this podcast, because you don't have to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
And that's that for that.
Yeah, no, and just so people know, if you look up Rod Brind'Amour, he is absolutely dieseled, man. He is in ridiculous shape.
Yeah.
Even now. How old? What would he be now?
He would be 2 years younger than me, so
Yeah.
he's probably 50, 51.
Yeah. Well, you know what, and just kind of circling back on this a bit too, as we say this for coaches, we say it for parents too, but I just think it's so important that to some degree you have to be doing the things you're asking other people to do, just so that there's just an element of respect that you're going to get because you do that as the coach or as a parent, whatever, but for this purpose, coaching. And that's something that stuck out to me. If I go back and I evaluate the coaches that I had, coaches where I thought highly of them, it made me so much more willing to do the things that they were telling me. Not that I wouldn't do them if I didn't respect them necessarily as much, but having that, it's just way easier to get buy-in from players when to some degree you do the thing that you're asking players to do. And I was watching, they have tryouts going on right now for some of the AA teams that are around here. And so I just popped my head out last night before I left, and they were doing like a bag skate at the end of the tryout. And that's fine. But the thought that I had in my head actually is I'm looking at the guys that are running the tryout, and it's just like none of you would be able to do what you're asking these kids to do.
Yeah.
And it's not that you have to be able to. It's not that you can't be a good coach unless you've done it, because there are exceptions, but it definitely helps if you have a perspective where you've done some of the things that you're asking other people to do.
Well, it's Rod Brind'Amour, right?
Right.
The guy's jacked. He worked hard. He's got everything about him is what he's asking his players to do. Right. So not one guy on that team could say, well, look at this guy telling me I need to be in shape. Well, yeah, he's telling you because that's what it takes.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just easier if you're trying to tell guys, hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to be in shape. You need to be whatever. If you can do it or have done it and the team knows that, then it just makes it easier for them to, one, believe you, and two, to buy into what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that I remember. And when I think back to all the coaches that I've had, which is a lot, the difference maker for me and my relationship with the coach was always that respect element.
For sure.
And you can't demand respect. You have to earn it, and if you're talking to your team, you're talking to your players, and you're trying to have that command of the group, that doesn't just mean you get the respect of the kids, and your insecurities as a coach, they'll come out, and because kids aren't stupid. It doesn't matter what age they are. They can read the type of person that you are. Whether or not they can articulate it and say what they think is a different question, but everybody can tell. It doesn't matter what age. They could be 7. They can tell when you're full of shit and when you're not. And I've noticed that.
They might not be able to articulate those words, but they're going to know something's off.
Yeah,
something's
off.
Weird.
And I've had that because I haven't coached a team, but I've been doing some version of coaching for over 10 years. And even when I have kids that are on the treadmill, they pick up on the things you're saying, and it's very, very obvious. So it's just, I think that's a really important thing. You can find a guy like Rod Brind'Amour where that's just such a good example of a guy that encompasses all of that. He's done it. He's been there. He tries to communicate well. And I don't know if it's solely because of him, because I don't know enough about Carolina, but they went from a team that was always kind of on the lower end. And the last few years now, they've been one of the top teams in the NHL. And I don't think that is a surprise. I think, the captain leads the ship to a certain degree. And so that speaks to, what he's been able to do with that team, at least.
Well, conversely, you look at the other side, and I'm not going to say names, but there's some coaches in the NHL that you just know they're dicks.
Yeah.
You just know all the time. They're dicks, and it's about me. It's my show. It's about me. It's all that kind of stuff, and the guys hate them. And and I know people that I've talked to a couple of them about a couple of them, and they go, "Yeah, idiot, ass."
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Doesn't
no
know
one wants to play
anything.
for him.
Yeah.
No, but might know X's and O's and might all know all that stuff. But it's ego. It's all this stuff. It's about you, right? It's
Mm.
all about you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
No one wants to play for that guy.
Yeah,
But
I've had a
now,
bunch of
as
those
a
too.
player, it's at that level you have no choice. If you want to get ice and you want to play, you got a contract. You have to do your job, but you don't do it. You don't do it because you want to play for that guy. You're doing
Yeah.
it for yourself and your teammates.
And that just to be clear, like that's the distinction too, because obviously the players have to play for you whether they want to or not.
Mhm.
But that's why this is more geared towards the coaching,
Yeah.
the coaches and the coaching side of it, because you are the one that is in control of how those relationships go. And if you want to have the most success that you can have, then there's certain things generally, like there's rules of thumb that you can follow that are really going to help you, or you can do things that are going to make everyone hate your guts.
Yep.
And you still get to be the coach either way.
Yeah.
But it's what kind of outcome do you want as the coach,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.